Welcome to episode 3 of the Profit Generator interview series for 2023. Hey guys, I'm Nathan Rigney, the Profit Generator, owner and principal accountant for NGR Accounting. In this episode, I'm taking the time to chat with a business partner that I recommend to NGR business clients to help them manage the risk in their business. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Stephanie from Marsh Insurance Brokers, an experienced business broker with a strong background in insurance and risk management. You know, what I love about Steph is her personal approach, the way she assists clients and how she helps them with their insurance needs in the most professional manner. But before we get into the video, I would love your support. I'd love your support by you guys hitting that subscribe button, clicking the reminder bell, and liking this video to make sure you get all our future awesome content. So with so much to cover, I think it's best we get right into this. So let's go. So today, as I said early on our intro, we're pleased to have Stephanie Schutte from Marsh Insurance. And today we want to talk everything about insurance. But before we get into these tough questions we're going to ask you, I want to know just, who is Steph from Marsh? What is an insurance broker? And, every client we've got's got insurance, but how's an insurance broker come into that whole piece?
Okay, so I am Steph, obviously. I am a contractor with Marsh. I am originally from country Victoria. I moved up to Sydney about 5.5 years ago. I have had my own insurance business for about 4.5 years now. I have been in the insurance industry for about 11 years, a long time.
Yeah.
So I guess essentially an insurance broker is there to act as a risk advisor, which you would have a lot of those involved in businesses, but I work obviously in the insurance component. So I am there to assist you in understanding what your insurance related risks are, how you can manage those, and I guess transfer risk from the business into an insurance program, obviously for a cost.
Yeah. So, and definitely a lot of value in using you instead of just going direct to the insurer themselves. Just instead of ringing up GIO, I can come to you and you can help me place the right insurance.
Yep. So the role of an insurance broker is to understand your business. We then know which insurers we can approach that will assist with your particular occupation. But I think the most important thing is that we go to a range of insurers based on the knowledge of the industry. But I think once the quotes come back, it's understanding what those terms and conditions actually mean and how they can actually affect that particular client. The technical side of that, and then being able to transfer that into terms that mean something to the client so that they can understand how they may be affected by those, is probably the most important part of dealing with an insurance broker.
So what types of compulsory insurance are required for Australian businesses? And, how do they differ from those optional other insurance policies that are out there?
Yep. So compulsory insurance would be your workers' compensation. If you employ workers, you have to have workers' compensation insurance. Technically, all other insurances will be voluntary, but there are caveats to that as well. So, for example, if you enter into contracts and you agree contractually to hold certain levels of cover and certain types of cover, you are bound by that contract to hold those. For example, a builder may enter into a contract. They may be required to have public liability insurance, professional indemnity insurance, contract works insurance, for example. Whilst they may not be a compulsory insurance for every builder, if you're entering into a contract and you've agreed to that, you must hold those particular insurances for the agreed term.
They need some insurance. How do you determine how much insurance that client actually needs?
Yep. So when we start a conversation with a client, as I mentioned previously, the first thing that we do is understand what your business actually does. From there, we can make recommendations on types of products that you need. We can assist you in understanding what potential claims examples could be and essentially work from there to help you in selecting a limit of cover that is acceptable for that. The other thing to consider again is the contractual obligations. Sometimes your risk may be less, but you're entering into a contract that has asked for more. If you don't renegotiate those terms and conditions, you will automatically have to have that limit of cover because you have agreed to it contractually.
Yeah. So can you explain the difference between a general insurance policy and a professional liability policy?
Yep.
And what types of businesses really fall under each one of those?
Yep. So a public liability policy will cover you where your negligence has caused third-party injury or third-party property damage. A professional indemnity policy is covering financial loss as a result of advice you have provided to a particular client. So an easy example would be an accountant. You obviously charge your clients a fee to provide professional services and professional advice to them on how they should manage their accounting side of the business. You would definitely need professional indemnity. A builder, for example, is a classic for public liability. If they drop a hammer from a level and it hits another worker in the head, that's a public liability claim.
Well, the interesting part as well was that you said, what we were talking earlier about, I said, well, okay, on that basis, what you just told me there, a builder wouldn't need professional, indemnity, right? And because when we think about professional indemnity, it's like, like you said, like white collars, white collar workers, white collar industry. So like accountants, lawyers, the like. But let's go back to the builder, right?
Yep.
Does a builder need professional indemnity?
It depends. So again, this comes back to dealing with a broker and us understanding what your exposures actually are. A builder who enters into a design and construct contract, even if they subcontract out their design component, will still have a vicarious exposure for professional indemnity. So again, that comes back to using a broker, them understanding what types of contracts you're entering into, what types of work you're actually doing, because anything can involve a professional exposure.
Right, yeah. So I guess really, and this is the value in using an insurance broker. You've sat down, you listen to the client about what they do, but generally speaking, if, say, for example, that builder was just to go to GIO and just said, hey, I'm a builder, I, put houses up or, build whatever I build, they might not ask that question to sort of then go, hey, you actually do need coverage for...
You miss the probing questions and conversation when you do an online application. Us listening to you talk about your business rather than you ticking boxes to say yes or no is a very different conversation. We hear things in how you explain your business as you talk about it that will trigger us to say, okay, they have an exposure for this, and we can then work through that and explain it and discuss it. It could turn out that you don't have that exposure once we get further into the details, but until you're having that in-depth conversation about what the business does, it can be missed.
Yeah. So I guess if, say, for example, a business does have a claim, you as the insurance broker, are you dealing with the claims?
Yes. So a unique part about dealing with a Marsh broker, or I guess with myself, is that I will place your policy, and if you have a claim, I will also handle that. So I think a benefit of following that approach is that I understand the business. I placed the policy, so I understand what the terms and conditions are, what I've explained to you as a business owner. And then if there's any negotiations that need to happen for, just say a claim's declined, for example, and we don't think it's fair, we can go into bat for you because we understand what we've placed, what you do, what the insurer told us at time of placement.
Yeah.
So
because there's this common theory out there or experience that people have gone through saying that insurance companies just don't want to pay out. Quite happy to collect the premiums, but then when it comes to I've experienced, the policy needing a payout, that the insurance company doesn't want to pay out. So I think there's a lot of value in the fact that if you're running a business and, you don't have time to stop to go make the claim, you've already take the coverage out with like an insurance broker like Stephanie. So therefore, you can deal with it. And the best part is that like us people are not in the insurance game. We don't understand the rules. We don't understand how to play the game. So if you're going in to make a claim, you're playing a game that you just don't even know the rules. So it's like you're learning on the go, which might be fine, maybe, after you've done 10 claims.
Yeah.
The reality is how many claims does a business generally, claim in a lifetime of their business?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the best part of dealing with a broker is that we know exactly what information we need to collect And we can also break down that information. If you don't understand what's being asked of you or what you need to supply, we can help you through that process. And then we obviously manage the claim on your behalf. So we make sure that you're getting the updates that you need when you need them. We make sure we're chasing you for information if you've forgotten to give us something. We obviously deal with the settlement side of things, so we make sure it's a fair settlement in line with what policy you have taken. So there's a lot of benefits of having an insurance broker manage a claim.
Absolutely. So tell me, what is underinsurance, but also what are the consequences of being underinsured? Yeah.
Yep. So underinsurance is essentially where your insurance coverage is not greater than a claimable claim. Essentially, I guess an easy example would be a building value, for example. So when you insure a building, you will be asked for a building replacement value. So it could be $1 million, for example. If that value is not correct and you have an insurance claim and your policy has a co-insurance or an underinsurance clause, the insurer can actually reduce your settlement because you have underinsured. So to avoid that happening, you can get a replacement valuation done by someone who's qualified to do that. But it essentially is a classic example of underinsurance. You don't get paid out the right amount because the policy isn't for the correct value.
And that's a really good example. So if, say, for example, we go back to that example, I just want to go a little bit further. Would underinsurance be something like, the building's burnt down, but we still need to knock it down and get it to bare land before we start building? Mm-hmm. Would an insurance policy include that? Or could that sort of be an example of underinsuring, like not thinking about something like that?
Yeah. So each policy wording is obviously unique, but they do have a lot of commonalities. So there will be items that are included in a replacement value, and then there will be additional benefits. So, for example, if there was demolition required, there might be an extension for that under the policy wording as standard. Again, coming back to using a broker, is understanding how and if those sublimits are adequate. For example, if a building has asbestos in it, it's a lot more expensive to remove the debris than it is if it's just a brick building.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that we understand what the construction of the building is, and if it's got asbestos in it, talking to you about the sublimit for removal of debris, and if required, based on the size of the building, increasing that sublimit. So again, just because your value might be correct, if you haven't dealt with an experienced broker, you may be underinsured in your removal of debris sublimit because it wasn't considered at the time of placement.
And so another question I just thought about, are you reading these policies?
Yes. We have to understand. Obviously, as I said, there's a lot of commonalities as we work through placements. You understand and see different claims from, other brokerages or just in the market in general. You learn different parts as you move along, but essentially we need to understand every policy that we're placing, and that's why you have to deal with an insurance broker.
That's good because I'm not reading the policy, you are. So,
yes.
I mean, that's I don't know how you're staying away. You must drink a lot of Red Bull or a lot of coffee.
Not quite.
So I want to know as well, how do you stay up to date with all the changes in regulations and industry trends in the insurance world, and based on these policies that you're offering?
Yep. So qualified insurance brokers need to complete a minimum of 25 hours of structured training per year to maintain our qualifications. So that can be anything from Marsh-related training, for example. They put on a lot of training to keep us up to date with things that are changing, product changes. It can be insurer-led training, so they might be having updates internally to their particular products. They do a lot of learning for us as well, so that people who are new into the industry can come in and learn from scratch, and people who are experienced get those updates to make sure that your knowledge is staying up to date.
Yep.
So training is a huge thing for our industry, and it has to be maintained.
Yeah, and I think that's what with every industry as well. But it's good to hear that an insurance broker in general is doing a minimum of 25 hours a year. Tell me, what are some of the misconceptions about an insurance, but also insurance brokers, and how do you address these?
Yep.
On a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception would be it's not going to happen to me. A lot of clients just think that they don't have the exposure that they really do. And that comes into where, again, we understand your business. We work with you to explain those. But a classic example would be cyber insurance, for example. A client will come in, I will talk to them about cyber, and they'll say, oh, it's okay, I've got IT people that look after that. The biggest issue there is that, yes, you may have a fantastic IT team. This is not to replace your IT team. This is to supplement the costs associated with, just say, a hack. You still have to pay your IT provider to work out how your systems were infiltrated, work out how to get rid of it, make sure that any sensitive data hasn't been taken. If it has, what are the requirements for you to notify appropriate authorities, etc. So I think, the biggest misconception would be that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah, I mean, even with that there, you've got to really sort of manage that reputation, damage to your brand.
Yeah.
And on that basis, I mean, like, if you don't have coverage and not be able to compensate those who you've wronged, not directly but indirectly, that could certainly really bring down your business as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a massive part of cyber that links in perfectly, is that cyber insurance that we place with CFC, for example, there is a separate sublimit for brand reputation. If you suffer a cyber attack, you're obviously going to have a loss of trust. There is cost there to maintain and to build that trust with clients again, so that you're not losing all of your clients because of that particular hack.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a very important policy. So thanks for providing that example. And I got one final question for you as well, is can you explain the role of an insurance broker in relation to other parties involved in the insurance process? So particularly underwriters. And I'd like to start even just what is an underwriter to start with?
Yeah. So you as a customer or a business will come to an insurance broker and say, I need help with my insurance. What do I need to take? An insurance broker's role is to collect the information that underwriters will require to underwrite your risk. So essentially, we collect the information, we create it's called a quotation slip, which provides relevant information to an underwriter or to an insurer. They will then review their internal guidelines against that information and provide a quotation. Once that quotation has been provided, the insurance broker's role is then to review that, make sense of the terms and conditions, and make or create a report so that you understand which underwriter or which insurer is the best fit for you based on the policy and the quotation that they've provided.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So, how does someone actually even want to, go out there and be, hey, I'm going to be an underwriter? It must be a very tedious job as well. I mean, working out the risk and I guess how you're going to insure someone, but that's probably a chat for another day. So, well, there's so much that you've definitely uncovered today, and I really do appreciate your time in, helping us understand a bit more about insurance. I truly do believe that, no matter where you are in Australia, that, as a business owner, that you should engage, if you're in business, with an insurance broker.
Yeah.
Even when I go on holidays, I actually get Steph to do my insurance as well, just that, just in case we can't get back home or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Because I'd prefer to deal with someone who's going to be able to handle the policy and a claim if that ever happens. But particularly, I think it's just so important if you're in business to get someone to actually take the moment to understand what you're doing, and then particularly be in your corner if a claim ever does come about. So thanks so much for sharing all this valid information with us today.
Anytime. Thank you very much for having me.
So one final question for you, and it's really important. For those who are really sort of connected and like what you're sort of saying and want to connect with an insurance broker, how can they go and find you?
Yep.
And
Yep. So if you are a client of NGR, then that's a very easy one. You can obviously contact Nathan and he can provide my details. I am on LinkedIn as well. So you can type in my name, Stephanie Schutte, or you can search Stephanie Schutte Marsh and my details will become available. But I think the easiest way is to get in contact with Nathan.
Yeah, and of course we will put Stephanie's details in the show notes. So they'll be all there. So definitely you should be able to find it. But if not, reach out to us at NGR Accounting and we'll put you in touch. Well, it's been a great opportunity today speaking with you, Steph. Thank you for chatting to us.
Thank you.